If someone had told me last year at this time that I would give a High Holy Day sermon dealing with the triumph of Ukraine, I would ask them, what are they drinking, what are they smoking, or whatever they do normally to lose touch with reality. What would I have to say positive about Ukraine other than the president of Ukraine refused to make up some bogus story about the son of a presidential candidate? But that's already old news, 37 scandals ago. We found out that the president of Ukraine is Jewish, which is a source of pride, of nachas for us. The truth of the matter is, the president of Ukraine, President Zelensky, would say he is of Jewish origin, which is a few shades different from saying, I am Jewish. Of course, being of Jewish origin was enough to be sent to a concentration camp, and more than enough for the Ukrainian anti-Semites to hate you. But as Mr. Zelensky's star rose, the worldwide Jewish community made it clear. He is Jewish. President Zelensky, you are Jewish. We're your people. You're one of us. And we're proud of you. Keep up the good work. But still, I had nothing else positive to say about Ukraine. My grandparents are from the Ukraine. One Monday evening, it was in the early 1990s, I got into a cab in Washington Square in New York City after leaving class at Hebrew Union College, the Reform Seminary, where I was in a doctoral program. And the female cabbie, she wanted to make some small talk, so she asked me where my family is from. I said, from Ukraine. And she said, you must be so proud of Ukraine. They had just become independent. Like in the beginning, 1991 it was. You must be so proud. And I kind of chuckled to myself and I thought, proud? Proud? My grandfather came to this country at the age of 17 to get out of there. The rest of the family was almost killed by pogromists who entered their home, and almost by a miracle, no, it was in fact a miracle, that the would-be murderers who murdered the Jews in just about every other home in the area, they left without hurting anyone or touching anything. My grandfather told me many stories. This was one of the greatest of all. I'll tell the whole story another time, but it was, in a way, thanks to him, and it was a miracle that they survived that. And then my grandparents, as a young married couple, worked to save enough money to bring the rest of the family. 2 parents, 4 brothers, a sister, brought them to the United States in the early 1920s before anti-immigration laws were passed into law. It's the same, ladies and gentlemen, the same anti-immigration story of today. But in the 1920s, it was the Jews, those Eastern European Jews, those uncultured Eastern European Jews who they wanted to keep out. Yeah, it was those uncultured Eastern European Jews who came to win Pulitzer Prizes, became Nobel laureates, became life-saving physicians, composers, literary geniuses, and accountants. Why did they ever let them in? My grandfather grew up in a city in western Ukraine called Proskurov, but you won't find it on a map today. Because the name was changed to the city of Khmelnytsk in honor in one of the most vicious anti-Semites Bogdan Khmelnytsky, who shed much, much, much Jewish blood. That was the kind of guy they honored by naming a city after him, even in the 20th century in Ukraine. And that's not all I would have to say to my crystal ball friend. 1.5 million Jews were slaughtered in Ukraine during the Shoah, during the Holocaust. 1.5 million Jews. They were killed not in concentration camps, but rather they were shot at close range in open fields and forests. They were brought together and told they had to dig deep, large trenches, which became their graves. After they finished the digging, the clothes were taken from them, and the shooting started. They fell in. And the most famous of one of these mass graves is Babi Yar. It was the Nazis who were primarily responsible for the savagery, but they didn't have to look too far to find Ukrainian accomplices. But all that changed on February 24th, 2022, this past year. It all changed. Russia invaded Ukraine, and our hearts aligned with the invaded, not the invaders. Ukrainians were the Davids trying to survive the onslaught of the Russian Goliath. We donated to organizations working to support the Ukrainian people. I went with about 10 other members of our synagogue one Sunday afternoon. It was in early March, to St. Anne Ukrainian Church in Warrington to deliver items that you donated the week prior to that. You brought all kinds of items that were to be shipped overseas to them. And we were there with so many other volunteers that afternoon to get these foods and other goods organized, boxed, and ready to be shipped. And one member of the congregation, Judy Friedman, as we were passing, doing the work, Judy commented to me, she said, "This is so beautiful and so horrible." Yeah, it was so beautiful and so horrible. Beautiful that so many people were there doing the work, but the reason why we were all there, so horrible. I surely let go of history, the atrocities and persecution of Jews over the ages, and focused only on a country on the path to democracy that wants to have the same freedom as you and I want to have. This morning we hope and pray President Zelensky will emerge from this war alive, and the president of a strong, proud, free country with secure borders, continuing on the path of developing a true democracy in Eastern Europe. On February 25th and 26th, Mr. Zelensky said he was not leaving Kiev. And people assumed that he was not long for this world. Miracles? This is a miracle unfolding before our eyes. Dear friends, at a time when we see so-called leaders at home lacking in even an ounce of courage, we are duly inspired by the great courage this one man shows. He is what President Kennedy called a profile in courage. Had he fled like the president of Afghanistan? Hey guys. You guys ready to sing? I can keep going? You're good. You're going to practice up here a little bit? You think you're early? Like in about how long do you think you'll be ready, Sage?
Whenever you're done.
Whenever I'm done. Okay, sooner the better, huh? So here's what President Kennedy called a profile in courage. And as I just said, had he fled like the president of Afghanistan, I believe Ukraine would not be a sovereign country today. Look at this, how one man's courage inspired an entire country and much of the world. I apologize in advance for the reference once again, but let me say this. They say you don't have to be Jewish to enjoy Levy's rye bread. And you don't have to be Jewish to have chutzpah. Of course, only we Jews can pronounce it. They say, oh my, he has such chutzpah. Chutzpah. Can you believe what he just did? That he's got chutzpah. And by the way, happy Hanukkah. No, it's chutzpah. It's Hanukkah. Yeah. They teach us how to do that in Hebrew school. So you don't have to be Jewish to have chutzpah, and I guess outside the tribe they must call it something else. But Zelensky is a Jew, person of Jewish origin, with chutzpah. His cup runneth over. His chutzpah may be what is saving Ukraine. Courage is a part of chutzpah, but there's more. Speaking truth to power is chutzpah, but there's more. Risking offending others with your righteous indignation is a big part of chutzpah. You say it because it has to be said. Mr. Zelensky spoke to Congress, to parliaments, to presidents and prime ministers. He had the manners to say thank you to the countries for what they gave to his country. And then he went on to tell them, in no uncertain terms, and criticize them for not providing all that his country needed, but telling them what he did need to survive, and that they were responsible to bring that to his country. Many times he made the statement, we need this and this and this. And even our country was slow to respond, but respond we did. Without the United States, Ukraine would not be a sovereign country right now. And friends, you and I, we together have reason to be proud of our country. The land of the free and the home of the brave. Yeah, we Americans have reason to be proud that we responded in such a way to such a leader. So if I bump into my imaginary friend again with his crystal ball, and they tell me what I'll speak about next year, I hope this is what they'll say, and this is what they'll see. I hope that next year, what I say will include how the use of any kind of nuclear arms was averted. Please, God. I hope the crystal ball will show how Europe survived the winter without Russian gas and oil, and there has been an almost miraculous turn to renewable types of energy. I hope they tell me how I'll speak about how Mr. Putin will no longer be in power and is replaced, halavai is the word, and is replaced by leaders who do not see the West as an enemy and is not bent on restoring the Russian Empire. And as a result of having a different leader who wants to relate differently to the West, to us, to our allies, that sanctions could be lifted Russians who fled could return home. And Brittany Griner and Paul Whelan can come home as well. When we sound the shofar tonight, we will say, as Jews have said for generations and millennia, L'shana haba'a b'Yerushalayim. Next year in Jerusalem. But let's also say tonight, let's also say next year for the people of the new Ukraine, to live in peace with freedom and security and prosperity. And we can offer a personal prayer. May each of us acquire even a bit of the integrity and the courage of a man who says that he is of Jewish origin. And we proudly say he is a Jew. Well, guys, that's it. You're on. So come on up.